Good morning, everybody. So, I think I have this thing figured out. Now, if there's still any issues with the microphone, then please let me know. I didn't get any feedback as such from when I tested it a second time, but if it's a little loud, you can turn your volume down. It was suggested to me that I not lower the volume too much because if your device is maxed out, it's maxed out and you can't make it any louder. And as somebody whose hearing isn't great, I understand. But the echo should be taken care of, which I know now how to use. Echo on, echo off. Yeah, I like doing that. But nonetheless, I have a video to make about how the narcissist will sacrifice anything for their spotlight. People's safety, bringing a criminal to justice, just no matter what has to be sacrificed, they'll do it to get their supply. And, it's going to be a little bit of a niche video because if you don't know the example that I'm using, you may probably not going to be able to follow this. So, and I caught some flack on Facebook for pointing this out, by the way. So, people don't seem to understand concepts and glorify narcissism. So what I'm talking about, example-wise, as I've done many times before, I often use characters in fictions and plot points to give examples of narcissism and narcissistic supply. In this video, where I'm discussing that a narcissist will sacrifice anything for their spotlight and supply, the example comes from the ABC soap opera General Hospital, which I have watched since a child, growing up and being watched by my grandmother, and continue to do so because it's like a last connection I have to her. So, recently, I think it was, yesterday, there's a plot point about the Nurses' Ball, which is a charity event that is for raising money for AIDS research and also about honoring the hard work and dedication of the General Hospital nurses staff. It has historically been hosted by the character Lucy Coe. However, she cannot do that this year because she's supposed to be dead and she's in hiding with Valentine and Anna trying to thwart the machinations of the very devious Victor Cassadine, the last remnant of the original generation of Cassidines. But, in true narcissistic fashion, Lucy Coe doesn't care. Lucy Coe knows that Victor is up to something. Lucy Coe was abducted by Victor and a victim of his machinations herself, but doesn't care. Why, may you ask? Because the Nurses' Ball for Lucy Coe is about her. And it's about her biggest narcissistic supply of the year, where she literally stands on stage and makes a charity event about her and gets off on the praise and admiration. She is quite skilled at it. It's not doubting one's skill, but intent is important, particularly in this context. So in this context of this fictional story, you have somebody who brought it on themselves to get involved in a espionage operation. Valentine and Anna and Robert Scorpio are all trained agents of espionage. They've had the professional training and were employed by the WSB, which does that kind of thing. Lucy Coe has none of that. But months ago, she thought, only I can do, no, a narcissist thinks they can do anything that anybody can. So she got herself involved and she got captured and they bailed her out. I got to go over some of this to prove my point. So now they're in hiding and they're getting close to bringing Victor down. This is imperative that, he thinks that they're dead, because if he knows they're alive, which he does know now, but Lucy doesn't know that, problems, people in danger. After all, they believe he killed Luke Spencer. I believe he's alive. But nonetheless, they're also trying to avenge the murder of someone they were all close to and respected of. But all that doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter, what evil is done, who has to die. Lucy Coe has to have that spotlight because no one else is capable of it. And like with most narcissists, compromise is not possible. So Lucy was even given a compromise as to where, her protege, Maxie Jones, I forget what her last name is now, but you know who I'm talking about, is running the ball with input from Lucy Coe. So she is able to get her way via behind the scenes, via somebody she mentored. And for most people, it is the purpose of being a mentor to bring your protege up to your level and thus, in a lot of ways, have them carry on your legacy. But not with a narcissist. With a narcissist, no matter how much you teach someone, train, no one can do what you do. It has to be you. No one else is capable. And, I find, and again, this has nothing to do with the actor who portrays Lucy, her looks, or anything. This is a comment on the writing, which, the actor does not write. But it's still nonetheless a glorification of narcissistic behavior, because you have, a grown woman in her 60s freaking out over not being able to stand on a stage and be the center of attention for a charity event. And it's not as if she's worried that it won't, be successful, be able to raise enough money, because she's having, all this input with somebody whom she's trained for many years. So logistically, she's still involved. If the purpose is to make it, run smoothly and be a success monetarily to raise money for AIDS research, which is why the ball exists, then that has been taken care of. It's about her standing on stage and everybody praising her and her getting that narcissistic supply, which is further reinforced by how she's acting by not being allowed to be involved. And this seems like pretty cut and dry. You being seen in public could get people killed. You cannot do it. I think any adult can respect that, to be in hiding for a, short to medium amount of time, months essentially, to keep people from dying, people people you claim to care about. But that should all be sacrificed for you to have one night of ultimate supply and praise. And, it's interesting to me, too, that in past years, Maxie was known to be quite selfish. But unlike Lucy, she has grown over the years. There's been character development. Most notably, she's had children since, the days of Couture and Kate/Connie. That's right. I have a really good memory about all this, too. So, if you watch GH, I'm probably going to be bringing back some memories of previous years. Not so for Lucy. And, to Maxie's credit, she had a very good idea. Gee, this is the nurses' ball, and it's the 60th anniversary of the hospital, which is really the 60th anniversary of the show. Why not have it hosted this year by a woman who has been a nurse at the hospital for decades? And I think she's the second longest running character on the show. I think the current character who's been there the longest is Scotty Baldwin. But Bobby Spencer is certainly one of the longest running. Certainly of the nurses and the hospital staff as a whole, she's been the longest serving character that way. So, a ball that's about raising money for AIDS research and honoring the hard work of nurses being hosted by that organization's most senior nurse makes sense. And, she's someone who's supported the cause and won't make it about herself. I would assume Bobby would do her best to make sure that the entire nursing staff, gets their praise, because they work as a unit. It's like firefighters, you may have separate tasks to do, but we are one team, and if we cannot come together as a team, there's going to be a problem. You cannot go on your own. But no, what does Lucy do? In true narcissistic fashion, she has a complete temper tantrum meltdown over this person who arguably has earned the right to host this event, hosting the event. Literally, in my opinion, acting as if somebody else was named prom queen instead of her, and claims that, the nurses' ball needs her. Now, again, she has input. She's telling Maxie, this is how you do this logistically and get it all to fall into place. But that's not enough. It needs her. And you see this with narcissists too. They claim exclusivity all the time, which is nobody can do what I do, no matter what, it has to be me, no matter how much I teach someone, only I can do this. Without me, it all falls apart. And that's just further example of a narcissist making everything about themselves, no matter what the event is, even a charity event, making it, instead of about the cause and the people it's honoring, all about this one person, them getting that supply. And that's what I believe in this case the character of Lucy Coe fears the most. There being a successful nurses ball without her. So then people would know that, while she has been a very integral and historic part of it and successful at it, but it can indeed be done without her, that she is not the keystone of holding such an event. And for most people, for those of us that are non-narcissistic, that's what we would want. If we were very passionate about a charity or whatever, you would want that charity to be able to be successful for that cause and go on after you're gone. Because let's be honest, nobody lives forever. And, this isn't a comment on Lucy's age or looks, but the woman's in her 60s. Like, she's not young. Things happen. Especially the older you get, the more things happen, and they can happen suddenly. My mother died suddenly at 67, and she wasn't sick or anything. Things happen, particularly as, one ages. Sudden heart attacks happen. And I think, if you extrapolate this into the real world, even if you're the head of a charity that you believe in, that you're, even the founder of, you would want that charity to be able to go on and function for that cause after you're gone. I'm sure, I'm not sure, but I would bet every dime I have that I would think Emilia Clarke would want Same You to continue helping people with brain injury recovery after she's gone. I would think Dennis Leary would want his charity raising money for firefighters to have proper equipment to be as safe as possible in the job. I'm sure he'd want that to go on after he's gone. After all, he started that charity after he lost his cousin who was like a brother to him in the Worcester cold storage fire, which I wrote a report about in fire school. Yeah. So those are two examples of people who have causes that they personally suffered for, and they started them, and I'm sure they want them to go on when their time's up. Lucy Coe just wants the nurses ball to be about herself. Anna Devane understands she can't be there, and Anna's only child, Robin, is has HIV. Like, the nurses ball, what it's for, has personally impacted her life. Without the AIDS research and stuff and the money raised by the nurses ball, Robin may not be alive today. So Anna has a very personal connection, to the ball, and understands that given the circumstances, she can't be there. Lucy can't see in the grass that, it's almost, it's admirable that she wants to make sure that it's successful, and one can do that from behind the scenes, but to be that narcissistic, to believe that, I must be center stage, I must make this event about me at all costs, even if it costs people their lives, even if it costs a criminal to go free, that is worth sacrificing for, for my supply, for me being in the spotlight, being praised, and to freak out over the idea of a nurse, a very senior nurse, decades of service, hosting a nurses ball. That was absolutely disgusting to me. And I don't, I'm getting bad comments on Facebook about I'm ageist and stuff. I for those of you that watch this channel, I criticize narcissists at all ages. I was upset and made that comment on the forum on Facebook because I don't like the glorification of narcissistic behavior. And yes, this is fiction, but I wanted to point out how a narcissist will choose their narcissism, their supply, over the safety and perhaps lives of others. And how can that be excused in any way? How can anybody think they're that important. I mean, historically speaking, those that were not narcissistic, that believed in causes of various kinds, would often sacrifice their safety or their freedom for the cause. Nelson Mandela is a perfect example of that. He could have put up a fight when they came for him, and some of the people with him would have surely died. But instead, he knew one way or the other he wasn't getting out of there, so he surrendered himself and was wrongfully imprisoned for decades. But he didn't make it about him. He understood what was at stake in that moment. And even in fiction, I think this is important to point out, especially to criticize, because at the end of the day, if you're criticizing fiction, you're not criticizing a person that actually exists, but it's important to also recognize in fiction behavior that you see in real life. Because if you think it's funny and excusable in fiction, it's likely that one would extrapolate that to be acceptable behavior in real life. And I don't think anybody thinks somebody is so important, or I hope, well, there are narcissists that believe they're that important, but I don't think anybody should excuse a narcissist's need for supply, for adulation, for a spotlight. No matter what you may think of that person, no matter how much history you may have of that person, them being praised is worth potentially sacrificing people's lives, or a mastermind criminal with a seemingly endless bank account going free to wreak havoc. That's just my thoughts. So I hope, for those of you that watch the show, I hope you agree with me. For those of you that don't, that made it through this video, I hope you got the overlaying point that a narcissist will sacrifice anything for their supply. They don't care what it costs other people. That's the theme. I'm just explaining it through a recent fictional story that really pissed me off. So I hope that was informative to my point, and I hope the microphone's working out okay. Please like and subscribe, comment below, tell me what you're thinking, and I'm going to try to get caught up with some other videos.